The story began on a quiet coastal evening when the ocean waves moved without hurry, and the wind carried a soft chill across the pier. The sky was turning orange and fading into deep blue, and most tourists had already left the small town. Only a few fishermen remained, packing their nets and tools as the day closed. No one knew that something unforgettable was about to begin there, something that would touch millions of hearts later. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock had arrived in that small town for a short break between filming schedules. They wanted silence, not attention. They had spent years surrounded by cameras, lights, interviews, and loud sets full of people shouting instructions. Here, they wanted to walk without being followed, to breathe without pressure, to exist without eyes watching every move. Both of them shared a quiet love for places where nobody expected anything from them. They walked side by side, not speaking much because true friendship never needed constant words. Sometimes the most peaceful conversations were made of silence. The ocean waves spoke for them, and the sound was enough. Then it happened. Sandra stopped walking first. She noticed a young boy sitting at the far edge of the pier. His posture was tense, like he was holding something heavy inside him. He did not look up when they approached. He did not even turn his head. He just stared at the ocean as if the water was speaking to him in a language no one else understood. Keanu noticed the boy, too. There was something strange about him. Not dangerous, not wild, just deeply silent. Silence was not unusual, but this silence had weight. It felt like the boy carried stories inside him, but none of them had ever been spoken. "Do you think he is waiting for someone?" Sandra asked quietly. Keanu shook his head slowly. "I do not know. But he is not just sitting. He is thinking. Something is locked in there." They stood a short distance away, watching him from the side. The boy looked about 16 or 17, maybe younger. His clothes were simple, clean, but old. His shoes were worn out. His hair was messy, like he did not care how he looked. He had a backpack at his feet and a closed sketchbook in his hands. Sandra smiled softly and stepped forward. She always believed in gentle approaches. She knew what it felt like to be young and lost, unsure of how to face the world. She spoke in a calm, friendly voice. "Hi there. Are you okay?" The boy did not react. Not even a blink. She tried again. "Do you live around here?" Nothing. Not a word. Not a sound. Keanu walked a little closer, but he did not speak at first. He simply observed. He had seen silence before in people who were broken, people who were hurt, people who were tired of trying to be understood. There was a quiet pain behind the boy's eyes, and Keanu recognized it because he had seen it in himself many times. Finally, the boy looked at them, but only for 1 second. Just 1 second. Then his eyes returned to the ocean. It was not rejection. It was something else. Something like fear mixed with memory. Sandra glanced at Keanu. "He is not ignoring us." "He is hiding," Keanu nodded. "And whatever he is hiding from, he has been hiding for a long time." The sun dropped lower, and the boy still said nothing. But now Keanu noticed something in his hand. The sketchbook. The boy held it tightly, almost protectively, like it was the only thing he trusted. Keanu spoke gently. "You draw?" The boy did not answer, but his fingers tightened around the book. Keanu did not push him. He knew when silence was a wall and when silence was a wound. Minutes passed. The sea moved in rhythm. Gulls flew overhead. The boy slowly opened the sketchbook and began drawing with a pencil. His hand moved fast, sharp, focused. No hesitation, no planning. It was like his mind already knew what he wanted to express before the pencil even touched the paper. Keanu and Sandra watched in silence. When he finished the sketch, he closed the book before they could see it. He stood up, picked up his backpack, and started walking away without a word. Sandra called out, "Wait! We just want to help." But the boy did not stop. Keanu noticed something fall from the boy's sketchbook as he left. A small torn scrap of paper drifted down near Keanu's feet. He picked it up. His eyes froze. It was a drawing. A perfect, detailed sketch of Keanu and Sandra standing together on the same pier, in the same position, even the same clothes, even the same sunset behind them. Drawn as if the boy knew they would stand there before it even happened. But that was not the most shocking part. The sketch showed Keanu and Sandra exactly as they looked many years ago when they were younger. Their faces were not today. They were from decades earlier. It was like the boy had drawn a memory that did not belong to him. Yet somehow he knew it. Keanu slowly handed the paper to Sandra. She looked at it, and confusion turned into something deeper, something like a forgotten echo. "How could he draw this?" she whispered. "This is not today. This is us from the past." Keanu said nothing. But in that moment, both of them understood something clear and terrifying. The boy was not a stranger. He already knew them, and he had known them for a very long time. Before either of them spoke again, part one of the mystery had already formed itself inside the hearts of both actors. Who was he? How did he know them? And why did he never speak? The ocean wind carried the sketch away gently, as if trying to hide the truth for a little longer. But the truth was coming. And when the world discovered who that silent teenager really was, millions of hearts would break, not from sadness, but from a kind of love the world had almost forgotten. The night settled over the quiet town, and the sound of the ocean grew louder as the streets emptied. Keanu and Sandra walked back toward their small rental house, but neither of them spoke much. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, but thoughtful, as if both were trying to understand something their minds were not ready to accept yet. The image of the boy's drawing stayed in their heads, the detail, the accuracy, the fact that he sketched them exactly as they looked many years ago, not today. It was not a coincidence. It was not a lucky guess. It was not a random fan drawing. It felt like a message, a memory, a connection neither of them could explain. Sandra finally broke the silence. "Keanu, do you remember anything like this? A boy, a sketchbook, something like that?" He shook his head slowly. "I remember many faces from the past, but not him. Not like this." "And if he knew us, why would he run away instead of speaking?" Sandra nodded. "Maybe speaking hurts him. Maybe silence is the only thing he trusts." Keanu looked out toward the ocean again. "Or maybe someone took his voice long before we saw him." That sentence hung in the air. The image of the boy sitting alone replayed in their minds. No expression, no smile, no sound, just silence as a shield. They decided to return to the pier the next day. Morning arrived with a soft fog covering the town. Fishermen were already out unloading crates of fresh catch. Children ran with school bags. The world looked normal, but something in the air felt unfinished, like the story they entered yesterday was still waiting for its next page. The boy was there again, sitting in the same place, same posture, same silence. He was sketching again. Keanu did not walk fast. He approached him slowly, with respect, as if approaching a wild bird that might fly away if frightened. Sandra held back a little, watching, letting Keanu take the lead this time. Keanu sat down on the pier next to the boy, not too close, not too far. He waited, no talking, no questions, only presence. After a full minute of silence, the boy paused his sketching and looked at Keanu. Not with fear, but with recognition, like he was waiting for this moment too. Like the silence was not rejection, but preparation. Keanu spoke in a soft voice. "You do not need to talk if it is hard, but we are here, and we are not leaving." The boy blinked slowly, then returned to his drawing. He turned the page and began sketching something else. This time it was not random. He drew the pier, the ocean, the sunset. Then he added 3 figures, a woman, a man, a little boy. The woman held the boy's hand. The man was kneeling beside him with a gentle smile. Sandra saw the sketch and felt something sharp in her chest. "Keanu," she whispered. "That is us. That really is us. But not from now." The drawing was a memory, a real one. From years earlier, Sandra suddenly remembered something. It came back like a soft flash, not clear, not complete, but real enough to pull her breath away. "Keanu, do you remember that one time on the set of Speed? We had that short break between scenes, and there was a young mother with a little boy at the fence, and she said they came from far away because her boy wanted to meet us." Keanu stared at the drawing, searching his mind. A small boy, maybe 5 or 6, brown hair, shy eyes. The mother cried when we greeted him. Sandra nodded slowly. "Yes." The boy did not talk much, but he kept staring at us. We hugged him. "You kneeled down and said something to him." "What did you say?" Keanu closed his eyes and tried to pull the past into focus. Then he remembered. I told him, when you do not know what to say, draw what you feel, because feelings do not always need words. Sandra froze, the sketchbook in the boy's hand, the silence, the drawings, the missing voice. Keanu whispered, "This is him, that little boy. This is the same child?" Sandra covered her mouth, realizing the truth was not a mystery anymore. It was a memory returning home after many lost years. But one question still remained. What happened to him? The boy stood up again, just like before. But this time, Keanu gently placed a hand on his shoulder. The boy did not pull away. He just stopped, looking at Keanu as if waiting for the world to finally translate what was inside him. Keanu spoke softly. "We remember you. Do you remember us?" The boy looked into his eyes. Only a second, but it was enough. There was recognition, not of faces, but of kindness. He reached into his backpack and took out a torn page. He handed it to Sandra this time. It was another drawing, but this one was not of them. It was a drawing of a woman, a kind face, soft eyes, the boy's. "Mother!" Sandra stared at it, and the truth hit her before words could. "She is gone," she whispered. He lost her. That is why he stopped talking. The boy's fingers trembled. He lowered his head. Keanu and Sandra both understood. Silence was not his choice. It was his wound, and the only language he had left was art. Before they could say anything else, the boy walked away again, not running, not hiding, just leaving like someone who was used to being alone and never expected anyone to follow. But this time, Keanu and Sandra did not let him disappear. They followed, slowly, respectfully, because now it was not a mystery. It was responsibility. They followed him through narrow streets, past old shops, past a bakery opening for the day. The boys stopped outside a small, abandoned house at the edge of town. Windows broken, paint peeling, but inside the open doorway, they could see dozens of sheets of paper pinned across the walls. All drawings, all of people. Strangers, locals, families, animals, workers, children, lives, all moments of kindness. The silent boy had been recording kindness in the world, not with words, not with cameras, but with lines and shadows and emotion. Sandra walked inside slowly, eyes wide. He has been drawing the world he wishes he still had. Keanu walked beside her. He draws what he cannot say. Then they saw it. A larger sketch hung alone on the back wall. It showed a woman on a hospital bed, holding the boy's hand, her eyes closed, her hand falling loose, and the boy standing beside her, silent. That was the last time he spoke. Sandra felt tears fill her eyes. He watched the only person who understood him leave, and the world became too loud to speak in. Keanu placed his hand over his chest, and the only voices left were the ones he could draw. Suddenly, Sandra noticed something more. In the corner of the same drawing, there were two small silhouettes. Not doctors, not strangers, two familiar figures. A man and woman outside the hospital room. They looked like them, younger versions, waiting in the hallway. Keanu stepped closer. "We were there? No." "That cannot be real. We never knew her." Sandra nodded slowly, thinking deeper. "But maybe she knew us. Maybe she did not come to meet us that day for her son. Maybe she came for herself. Maybe we gave her hope before she left this world, and she wanted her son to remember that hope, even when she was gone." Keanu stared at the wall. He did not lose his voice because life hurt him. He lost it because love left too fast. The boy stood outside the doorway watching them. No tears, no motion. Just silence. Keanu walked toward him slowly. "You are not alone." "Not anymore. We hear you. We see you. You do not have to speak. But you do not have to disappear again either." The boy blinked, and for the first time since they met him, something shifted in his expression. Not joy, not sadness, just a tiny fracture in the walls around him, a tiny opening for light. The story had not reached its twist yet. The world did not know him yet. But the cracks in silence had begun. And once the truth came out, Millions would cry, millions would remember, and millions would learn that kindness never dies. It only waits to return. The sun climbed higher in the sky, lighting the inside of the abandoned house where hundreds of drawings hung like silent memories frozen in pencil. Each sketch carried emotion. Each line told truth. Every page felt like a voice that never got the chance to be spoken out loud. Keanu and Sandra stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by the silent world the boy had built. Every drawing felt alive. A child feeding a stray dog, an old man helping a young girl fix her bicycle, a cafe owner giving free bread to a tired traveler, a student pushing a wheelchair across a street. Simple acts of kindness. No names, no fame, no applause. Just humanity at its purest. The boy did not draw pain. He drew proof that kindness still existed in the world, even if no one noticed. Sandra whispered, "He is collecting moments the way people collect things they cannot afford to lose." Keanu nodded. These drawings are his language. This is how he breathes. But deeper questions still remained. Why was the boy alone? Who was taking care of him? Where was he staying? How long had he been living like this? And most of all, how had he survived with nothing but silence and a sketchbook? The boy sat on the ground, sharpening his pencil with a small blade. He did not seem afraid of them anymore, but he still did not speak. He just watched them the way someone watches a storm. They already learned to survive. Sandra slowly kneeled beside him. "Can we stay here for a while?" The boy gave the smallest nod. Keanu sat on the floor too, crossing his legs like he was back in school, ready to learn something new. He glanced around again, noticing something different about the drawings. Many were recent, but some seemed older. The paper was yellowed. The edges were worn. There were tear stains on a few of them. Some pages looked like they were drawn years ago. The boy had been drawing for a long time. Then Keanu noticed something else. One corner of the wall was empty. Not blank, but scraped clean, as if many drawings had once been there, but were removed. Only tiny tape marks remained. Keanu pointed gently. "What was here?" The boy looked at the empty space. His fingers tightened around the pencil, then relaxed again. He stood up, walked to his backpack, and took out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on the dusty floor and slid it toward them. Keanu opened it. A single sketch. A woman with tired eyes, holding her son's hand in a hospital bed. It was the same drawing they had seen earlier, but this version had something new. Words written in tiny, shaking letters at the top edge. "I will find the people who made you smile. When I am gone, they will keep you safe." Sandra's eyes softened. She wrote that for him. She knew she was dying. She left him a mission, not a scream. Keanu nodded slowly, and he has been searching ever since. Not for attention, not for help, for connection, for the two people who once made him believe the world was gentle. Sandra whispered, "For us." The boy watched their reaction carefully, not like he was testing them, but like he was bracing for disappointment. Like he had already learned that even promises made in love could be forgotten by the world. Sandra took the drawing into her hands gently, like it was fragile glass. She trusted us, even though she barely knew us. And we never knew. We never knew. Keanu spoke with deep weight in his voice. We cannot change the past, but we can decide what we do from today onward. The boy blinked slowly. It was the closest thing to trust they had seen from him. Hours passed. They stayed with him. They did not force conversation. They allowed silence to exist without pressure. Sometimes silence was not a wall. Sometimes it was a doorway. Sandra brought food from a nearby cafe. She placed it near him without insisting. He hesitated, then ate. Not fast, not desperate, just with quiet gratitude. Keanu fixed a broken window frame, not because the boy asked, but because kindness was not something to perform, but something to live. Then something surprising happened. The boy took out a fresh page and began to draw. Not the world, not strangers, not memory, he drew them, but not from the past, from now. Sandra watching him, gently. Keanu fixing the window behind. He was not drawing what he remembered anymore. He was drawing what he was beginning to feel. Again. Safety, presence, belonging. Sandra spoke softly. He is letting us in, Keanu nodded. And once he lets the world in, Everything will change. But the world was not patient. Rumors had already started in the town. A few locals spotted Keanu and Sandra entering the abandoned house with the silent teenager. People talked. Some curious, some suspicious, some heartless. A shopkeeper whispered that the boy was strange. Another said he had no family and survived on leftovers. Someone else said he was dangerous simply because he spoke to no one. Keanu and Sandra did not know any of this yet. But something was already moving toward them. The story was not going to remain hidden much longer. That evening, after they spent almost the whole day with the boy, they decided to step outside for air. The boy followed, not close, not behind, just beside them. Still silent but not retreating anymore. As they walked through town, people stared. They stared at the boy, not Keanu or Sandra. The boy lowered his head. He was used to this. People feared what they did not understand. Silence made people uncomfortable. They liked words, even empty ones, more than quiet truth. Keanu noticed the boy shrinking, trying to make himself smaller. He quietly placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. Not forceful, just reassuring. The boy did not pull away. They reached a small park and sat on a bench. The boy sat on the grass near their feet, sketching again, but this time his hand was shaking. Not from fear, from something deeper. Like his mind was preparing for a storm he had seen before. Sandra spoke softly. He does not hide from us, but he still hides from the world. Keanu nodded, because the world has not earned his trust yet. They stayed there until the sky turned gold again. The same time they first saw him. The same light, the same ocean, but now, nothing was the same. The boy closed his sketchbook and stood up. He walked toward the pier again like a daily ritual. Like sunset was the only time the world made sense to him. Keanu and Sandra followed without speaking. As they reached the pier, something unexpected happened. A small group of people were already there, locals who had heard rumors. They watched the boy like he was an exhibit. One man whispered loudly, "That is the weird kid who never talks." Another laughed, "Maybe he is mute, or just broken." The boy froze. His silence was no longer safe. Sandra stepped forward immediately, her voice firm but calm. "He is not broken. He is brave, and what he draws will outlive every cruel word spoken here." The people did not respond, but they stopped laughing. Keanu walked beside the boy. "You do not owe the world noise. Your silence has more meaning than their noise ever will." The boy looked at him, eyes filled not with tears, but with something new, maybe trust, maybe the first spark of healing. Night came again. They returned to the abandoned house. Before leaving, Keanu turned to him and said, "We will come back tomorrow." The boy nodded. He believed them now, not because of promises, but because of presence. The door closed slowly behind him. Keanu and Sandra walked away. But halfway down the path, Sandra stopped, heart tightening. "Keanu," she whispered, "do you feel it too?" Keanu nodded. "Yes. The world is going to find him very soon, and when that happened, the truth would not stay quiet. The past would not stay buried. And when people discovered who the teenager truly was, millions would break, not from pain, but from love they forgot they were still capable of. The real story had not started yet. Everything so far was only the silence before the reveal. The next morning arrived with a softer light than before, as if the sky itself knew something delicate was unfolding. Keanu and Sandra returned to the abandoned house early, carrying breakfast and fresh art supplies, pencils, erasers, sketch paper, and a small box of colors. Not expensive, not dramatic, just enough to tell the boy silently, "We care." When they reached the house, the door was half open. The boy was already awake, sitting near the window, sketchbook on his lap, staring at nothing and everything at the same time. The room felt different today, not empty, not abandoned, but waiting. Sandra placed the food near him. He looked at it, then at her, then nodded once. The smallest nod, but full of meaning. Keanu handed him the art supplies. "Use these if you want, no rule, no pressure." The boy touched the pencils like they were not mere tools, but something sacred. He held them the way others held memories. They sat with him again. No forcing words, no asking questions, just time, slowly shared, like sunlight spreading across cold ground. After a while, the boy opened his sketchbook and began to draw again. This time, Keanu leaned a little closer, not to invade his space, but to understand the world through the boy's. The drawing was not of the present. It was another memory, a hospital hallway, nurse walking away, a little boy sitting, alone on the floor, a blank chair beside him. Someone should have been sitting in that chair, someone who never came. Keanu's voice lowered. He waited for someone who never arrived, Sandra whispered. Maybe he hoped someone would stay. But everyone left. The boy did not stop drawing. His pencil moved faster, lines pressing deeper into the page, shadows growing stronger as if the memory took control of his hands. Then something happened. His hand suddenly paused. His breathing changed. His shoulders tensed. Keanu noticed first. He is remembering something painful. Sandra leaned close. We should not stop him. Sometimes the heart needs to finish the memory before it can rest. The boy finished the drawing. The last detail was a small paper in the child's hand. Crumpled. Unread. Sandra clenched her fingers. That was his goodbye. His mother must have written something before she died. But maybe he was too young to read it. Or too afraid to open it. Keanu looked at the boy. He never opened it, because opening it would make it real. The boy closed the sketchbook. Not gently, but like someone closing a door that still hurt to touch. They walked outside again, letting him take the lead. He walked slower today, as if the drawing had drained something from him. They did not push him to talk. They did not say it will be okay, because empty comfort was useless to someone who survived silence, grief, and abandonment. They reached the pier again, the same spot where they first saw him. But this time, something new waited there. A camera crew. Not big, not Hollywood, just local news. A reporter with a microphone, a cameraman, and a small crowd gathering behind them. Keanu froze. Sandra's heart dropped. They knew what this meant. Someone had talked. Someone had told the town that a strange boy was staying in an abandoned house with two world-famous actors. And the world was hungry for answers it did not deserve. The reporter saw them and rushed forward. Keanu Reeves. Is it true you and Sandra are helping a mute homeless teenager? Is he an abandoned fan? Is this part of a movie? Can we see him? What is his condition? Keanu stepped in front of the boy instantly like a shield. His tone stayed calm but firm. Do not film him. Do not turn his pain into entertainment. The reporter forced a fake smile. The public will want to know, Sandra interrupted sharply. The public has no right to invade a grieving child's life. Back away, the crowd whispered. Some filmed on phones. The boy took a step back. His breath became shallow. His fingers trembled toward his sketchbook, the only safety he knew. Sandra kneeled to him. You are safe. Look at me. You are safe. But the boy was not looking at her. He was staring at the cameras, at the world, at the same world that ignored him when he needed help, and now wanted to feed on his pain. Keanu turned to the reporter. Leave him alone. This is not a story for you to steal. But the damage was done. The boy suddenly turned and ran. Not toward the town, not toward shelter, but toward the rocky edge of the coast. Fast, silent, panicked, Sandra shouted, Wait! Please! Keanu ran after him. The reporter kept filming. The crowd followed. The boy reached the sharp rocks, stumbled, and fell to his knees. His sketchbook hit the ground and slid toward the edge. Pages opened, drawings scattered into the wind, flying like broken memories. The boy reached out desperately for them, not for food, not for safety, but for the only voice he ever had. One page flew high, spinning, drifting toward the sea. And it was not just any page. It was the drawing of Keanu and Sandra holding the boy's hands when he was a child. Sandra saw it floating and gasped. Keanu saw the boy crawling toward the edge, not caring about the danger. He shouted, "Stop! Don't move!" But the boy did not hear. Or maybe he heard, but grief was stronger than fear. He reached for the page, his hand hanging over the edge of the cliff, body trembling, breath-breaking. Keanu reached him just in time, grabbing his shoulder and pulling him back to solid ground. The crowd went silent. The cameras stopped. Sandra rushed over and held the scattered drawings against her chest, protecting them like they were living pieces of him. Keanu whispered to the boy, "Nothing is gone. Nothing is lost. We are here." The boy closed his eyes, shaking, not from cold, but from a lifetime of holding pain, alone. Then something happened. For the first time since they met him, a sound escaped him, not a word, not a sentence, just a broken breath that sounded like someone trying to relearn life. The world did not hear it, but Keanu and Sandra did, and to them, it was the loudest thing the boy had ever said. They took him back to the abandoned house. This time they stayed longer. They closed the door. They gave him space. They did not try to talk. They let him rest. After some time, the boy picked up his pencil again. He did not draw the ocean. He did not draw strangers. He drew one thing, a chair, an empty chair, the one nobody ever came to sit in. Keanu stared at the drawing. That was the moment he stopped, believing someone would stay. Sandra nodded, her voice soft. "And we have to change that." Not with words, with presence. Keanu placed his hand on the table gently. "We are not leaving." Not today. Not tomorrow. Not until he knows that the world has not forgotten him. The boy looked at them again, but this time his eyes were not empty. They were asking something, not with voice, but with hope. The smallest, most fragile hope. The world outside was changing fast. The news clip had already appeared online. People were sharing. Fans were asking questions. Critics were making guesses. The world was building a story without knowing the truth. But none of them knew what was coming. None of them knew who the boy really was. None of them knew the twist that would break millions of hearts in one moment. And when the reveal finally came, the silent boy would become the loudest message. The world had heard in years. Kindness does not need a voice to change a life, and love does not need applause to exist. The story was almost ready to unfold. The silence was almost ready to speak. Night fell quietly over the town, but nothing felt quiet inside the abandoned house. The boy sat on the floor, clutching his sketchbook like a lifeline, while Keanu and Sandra stayed close, not speaking, not forcing anything, just letting him feel that he was not alone. The world outside was no longer silent. The video of the pier incident had begun spreading online. Headlines appeared everywhere. Mysterious, silent teenager with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. Who is the boy? Why won't he speak? Viral drawings found inside abandoned house, people speculated. Some were curious. Some were cruel. Some said he was mentally unstable. Others said he was a genius. No one knew the truth. No one understood what silence cost him. But inside the house, something small and powerful was happening. The boy opened his sketchbook and turned to a blank page. He looked at Keanu, then Sandra. Then he slowly placed the pencil in the center of the page and pushed the book toward them. He wanted them to draw something. Both of them froze. Sandra whispered, "He is letting us inside his world." Keanu took the pencil, unsure what to draw. He finally drew something simple, a small light like a candle. Sandra drew beside it, a hand protecting the flame from the wind. The boy stared at the drawing for a long time. Then quietly, he added a third part, a second hand, his hand helping protect the same flame. No words, but the message was clear. He was no longer drawing alone. The next morning, something changed again. The boy packed his drawings into his backpack and walked toward the pier. Keanu and Sandra followed, but this time, he did not sit alone at the end. He stood in the middle of the pier and opened his sketchbook. Page after page, he let them be carried away by the wind. Drawings of strangers, drawings of kindness, drawings of memories, drawings of pain, drawings of love. He let them go one by one, not because he wanted to forget them, because he no longer needed to carry them alone. Sandra watched in silence, tears filling her eyes. Keanu whispered, He is freeing his past. The last page he tore was the sketch of his mother holding his hand. He did not release it. He folded it gently and placed it inside Sandra's hands. For the first time, he looked at her and held eye contact. No fear, no hiding, just a silent request. Remember her with me. Sandra pressed the paper to her heart. I will. Keanu placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. We are here. Not for a moment. For real? The boy took a deep breath, and for the first time, his lips moved, not a full word, not a sentence, just one single, fragile sound, a whisper. But it was enough. It meant the door had opened, the silence had cracked, and healing had begun. The world was still waiting for answers. The internet was still guessing his identity. No one was prepared for the truth. No one knew that the artist behind the viral anonymous project called The Quiet Eyes was this silent teenager, and no one knew that the one moment that changed his life forever was a small act of kindness from two strangers decades ago. The world was about to find out, and millions would cry when they did. The next day began like the others, but nothing was the same anymore. Something in the boy had shifted. The silence that once felt like a cage now felt like a space he was slowly learning to leave. Not because someone forced him to speak, but because someone finally stayed long enough to listen. Keanu and Sandra walked with him through town. This time, the boy did not walk behind them. He walked beside them. Head still turned, but he did not lower his eyes anymore. That small change was louder than any speech. But the world outside the town was no longer quiet. Overnight, the news spread everywhere, social media filled with posts. Who is the silent teenager with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock? People say he draws like he's seen every soul in the world. Is he the mysterious artist behind the Quiet Eyes Project? The Quiet Eyes Project, a viral art movement that had been appearing online for almost 2 years. No one knew the artist. No signature. No interviews. Just drawings of pure humanity. Millions shared them. Teachers printed them for classrooms. Hospitals framed them on walls. Soldiers kept them in pockets. People healed just by looking at them. And now, the world was beginning to connect the dots. One blog posted a side-by-side comparison. An old, quiet eyes sketch of a grieving child holding a sketchbook and a photo of the boy found at the pier. Within hours, the truth exploded. The silent teenager was the artist the world had been searching for. People did not just want to know who he was anymore. They wanted to thank him. They wanted to apologize for not seeing him sooner. They wanted to hear the story behind the silence. But the boy was not ready to face millions. He barely learned how to face himself. When they reached the pier again, a man was waiting there, not a reporter, not a tourist, a middle-aged art curator holding a printed page. He spoke gently. Is this your work? The boy hesitated, then nodded once. The man's eyes softened. Your art saved lives around the world, son. People who were depressed, lonely, sick, hopeless. They found light through you. The boy looked confused. He did not understand how something he drew while hiding in pain could help strangers he had never met. Keanu explained softly. Sometimes the deepest wounds draw the strongest kindness, Sandra added. You were silent, but the world still heard you. The boy's hands shook again. Not from fear. This time from the overwhelming truth he had never expected. He did not draw to be seen. He drew to survive, and the world had turned those drawings into a heartbeat. Days passed, and people kept arriving at the town, not to disturb him, but to stand at the pier, holding copies of his art, waiting in silence, not cheering, not shouting, not demanding. They stood silently, honoring the silence that once protected him. For the first time in years, silence was no longer his burden. Silence was his language. Keanu and Sandra sat with him inside the abandoned house one last time. It no longer looked empty. The walls were covered with his drawings again, but not to hide sadness. This time, to honor it. Sandra spoke gently. There is no rush for words. You speak already. Every line you have ever drawn is a voice. Keanu added. You do not owe the world sound. Your art already told the story no one else could tell. The boy slowly opened his sketchbook. There was one blank page left, the last page. He looked at them. Then, for the first time, he wrote something instead of drawing, "Thank you for staying," not perfectly written, not fancy handwriting, just simple, small, shaking letters. But it was enough. The world did not break because the truth was sad. The world broke because the truth was beautiful. The boy who lost his voice found the world again through kindness. And the world listened. Not because he spoke loudly, but because he spoke honestly. The final drawing he ever released showed 3 figures by the ocean. A woman whose memory never died, a child who survived without words, and 2 strangers who came back into his life when he needed them most. No title, no signature, just a small note at the bottom. Kindness never leaves. It just waits to return. Millions shared it. Millions cried. Millions remembered someone they once ignored. And somewhere, a silent boy finally rested in a world that no longer felt empty.